So today we're going to take a look back at a tech giant's ambitious and, let's be honest, ultimately doomed attempt to conquer the mobile app world. This is the story of the Windows Phone Store. It's a tale of huge ambition, super fast growth, and a fall that's become a bit of a cautionary tale for the entire tech industry. I mean, do you remember this? For a little while there, it really felt like we had a genuine third contender in the smartphone race. This was Microsoft's big shot, their massive play to challenge the dominance of Apple's iPhone and Google's Android. And right at the heart of that whole challenge was its very own App Store. All right, so let's set the scene. We have to go back to October 2010. The smartphone world is just exploding, and Microsoft knows that if it wants to compete, it can't just build a good phone. It has to build a whole ecosystem. And that, of course, meant launching its own App Store. So its first name was the Windows Phone Marketplace. It launched right alongside the brand new Windows Phone 7 OS. And the mission? Well, it was pretty simple. Get the killer apps that would make people actually choose a Windows Phone over everything else out there. Now, here's the thing. Microsoft wasn't just playing catch-up. They designed their store with some really interesting and, unique features. They were hoping to pull in both users and developers by offering something genuinely different. And you can see their strategy was all about setting themselves apart. That try before you buy feature, what a fantastic consumer-friendly idea. If you were a gamer, the deep Xbox Live integration was a huge selling point. And they added really practical stuff too, like letting you pay through your phone bill if you didn't have a credit card, and even installing apps from an SD card, which was a really smart move for parts of the world with shaky internet. Okay, so unique features are great and all, but let's be real. The real battlefield, then and now, is the sheer number of apps you have. An app store lives or dies by its library, and Microsoft just went into overdrive to get its shelves stocked. And man, for a while there, the growth was just explosive. The store hit 100,000 apps in only 20 months. And then, unbelievably, it tripled that number to 300,000 less than 2 years later. Microsoft wasn't just in the race, they were picking up some serious speed. Now, to really get a sense of what that means, let's put it in context. Hitting that 100,000 app milestone took them 20 months. Yeah, that was a little slower than Apple's iOS, but it was actually a lot faster than Google's Android managed back in its early days. So at this point, you're looking at this and thinking, wow, Windows Phone is a very serious competitor. So you gotta ask, how on earth did they pull that off? Well, it all came down to aggressively winning over the people who actually build the apps, the developers. Because an app store with no developers is just an empty storefront, right? So Microsoft put this pretty competitive deal on the table. The 70% revenue share was standard, but they were always running these promotions, slashing the annual fee down to just $19. They even set up special programs like DreamSpark that let students submit apps for free. They were basically trying anything and everything to get people on board. But maybe their most innovative move, their secret weapon, was this: the Windows Phone App Studio. They realized that, hey, not every great app idea has to come from a professional coder, so they built a tool that let literally anyone create an app. And it was just so simple. You pick a template, drop in your own content, and boom, publish it to the store. This was a game changer for getting people involved. But, and this is a big but, it also created a kind of hidden problem. Sure, it helped flood the marketplace with applications, but a lot of them, well, they weren't great. We're talking low-quality clones, simple website wrappers. It contributed to what people called an app gap that wasn't really about quantity, but about quality. But you know how these stories go. Despite all this early success, a huge strategic pivot was just around the corner, one that would totally redefine and ultimately seal the fate of Microsoft's mobile dreams. And here it is. This was the big turning point. With Windows 10 about to launch, Microsoft decided to shift its focus away from a dedicated phone store to a universal one, hoping to unify the experience across all their different devices. You have to understand, this was a massive change in philosophy. They went from these separate, dedicated storefronts to just one single Windows store for everything. Now, the idea sounded good, right? Developers could write one app and it would just work on your PC, your tablet, and your phone. But what actually happened? Well, developers, logically, focused on the giant PC market, and the phone, it kind of became an afterthought. Suddenly, the phone wasn't the star of the show anymore. It was just one small piece of a much larger Windows ecosystem. And that strategic shift? Well, it really was the beginning of the end. While the new unified store was all about Windows 10 devices, the original dedicated store for all those older Windows phones was now officially living on borrowed time. And this is the date the story officially came to a close. December 16th, 2019. That's when Microsoft finally pulled the plug on the App Store for its Windows Phone 8.1 operating system. I mean, imagine being one of the loyal users still holding on. This was the final nail in the coffin. You couldn't download new apps. You couldn't even update the ones you already had. It effectively turned their smartphones into museum pieces overnight. And it marked the definitive end of Microsoft's big challenge in the mobile App Store wars. So when you look back, the story of the Windows Phone Store is just such a powerful case study. They had innovative features, they had early growth that outpaced Android, but in the end, it wasn't enough to overcome that quality app gap and the massive head start of their rivals. It just proves that even for a behemoth like Microsoft, breaking a duopoly is a monumental task. And it really leaves us with this big question, right? In a market so completely dominated by two players, is it even possible for a third contender to survive?